Today we don't want to focus on the Son himself. We want to focus on the Father. As it says up here, we want to think about a father's heart. You may be here today as a father or as a grandfather, and you would say, Eric, this has not been easy. I've had challenges, and that's understandable, as we've already mentioned. You may be here as a child, and we all have a father. Maybe the father has already passed away. Maybe you've never known your father. Maybe you've had a father that caused a lot of pain in your heart, in your life. Can I just encourage you today that regardless of your situation, that the Bible says, and we had a little prayer meeting, and this is such an encouragement to me. The Bible says that God is a father to the fatherless. And that's been such an encouragement to me, as most of you know, my own situation. But also, if I can say that just because I did not have the ideal scenario growing up myself, doesn't mean that I have to pass along that kind of idea. I can still be the dad that God has called me to be, even though I may not have had a dad that I wish I had. So 2 things. For the fathers, grandfathers that are here, take on board what we're talking about. And for those who aren't in that category, would you be willing to be thankful for the father that you have, for the things that have been passed along to you? Maybe as a mom, just like my mother, that you had to wear 2 hats, that of a mom and a dad. So looking at this passage, we're going to sort of pick out a few bits. As a matter of fact, I'd like to have this sort of a big spiritual meal looking through all the various things, but we're going to do a little bit of a picky bit kind of thing. Does anyone know what picky bits are? Do you know what picky bits are? Oh, good. Okay, there's 2 or 3. So when we do this teenager thing, I was asked, Eric, could you go buy some picky bits? And what that means, like little finger foods. And I figured out what picky bits were, so I thought, I'm pretty cool now. I'm hip. I'm with the teenagers now. So we're going to do a little bit of a picky bits scenario as we look through this particular passage. Verses 11 through 16. I want us to consider the situation here, where we're going to be looking at some difficult days for Dad. As Odette as she read so well, the Bible said that a certain man had 2 sons. And the younger of them said, Dad, I want you to give me my portion. I want you to give me some money. If there ever has been a father or a mother who has never had that happen in your life, well, then you're in a unique situation, right? But this is a little bit different scenario in that he said, I want you to give me my inheritance. Well, that doesn't make a whole lot of sense, does it? Because that shows a lot of disrespect. Because an inheritance is meant for the time that when the father dies, that it would come into the hands of the children, the son in this particular case. I wonder, why did he do that? What was there within him that made him think that way? Well, we can talk a lot about that. Sin, not really caring about maybe the family and thinking about himself. But here's the thing. As I was thinking about that, if I was in that father's shoes, would I do it? Or would I not? Would I not? Here's the reality that I've come across, and as much as I don't like it, children need to make mistakes. And I know maybe as a parent, as a protector, one of the things that we want to do is come alongside and protect them from every possible scenario, right? Every possible danger that may be out there, we want to wrap them in our arms, wrap them with some bubble wrap so that nothing will ever reach into them to cause them harm. But is that good preparation for life? It's not. Now, you may say, Eric, so where do we draw the line? And that's a tough one, isn't it? I mean, you have to teach them to walk across the road to look both ways, right? You have to teach them that. But there's sometimes then children got to learn to make mistakes. Now, I came across some photos that I'm going to show you here in just a second that you may think, okay, Eric, so we need to let our children sort of have some adventures in life and to be able to learn and make mistakes. And, you know, sometimes dads look at things differently than their mothers. I think that's... Now, I saw these photos and someone said, well, that's really bad. I was looking at these, I said, what's wrong with these? For example, I'll show you what I mean. This particular photo right here, I mean, doesn't that perfectly make sense to me? I mean... There's a little baby, and the dad didn't want him to crawl away, so he tied the little whatever you call that thing around the... What's wrong with that? And I saw this one. Isn't that cool? Dad got this pretty cool tractor and throwing the kids on that mattress and wheeling them around the garden. I don't see any problem with that. And then I saw this one. How practical is that, right? There's a little baby. Dad's gaming, doing something on his laptop. He needs to find a place for his mouse, and there we go. Is that a problem? I don't think so. But this is probably my favorite. That makes a whole lot of sense to me. I mean, if you need a bit of quiet time and little Junior is running around and just needs to have a bit of control, and you got a roll of gaffer tape, what do? Well, there we go. There we go. I know that when we deal with children as fathers, we need to allow them to be able to make choices. And here it is, this dad. His son came up to him and said, Dad, can I have my inheritance? And we don't know all the conversation that happened. And sometimes as we allow our children to go and make mistakes, sometimes we can heap this false guilt on ourselves for the choices that our children make. Have you ever said that, boy, if I were you, this is what I would do, or why in the world did you do that? And sometimes we just have to cut the string and let them go. See, our job, looking throughout the Bible, our job as parents and as dads, our job is to pray. Our job is to be an example. Our job is to listen. Our job is to teach. Now, you may argue with me, but I think it's got to be in that order as well. Praying has got to be the most important priority. But then being an example, right? How many times, and have you ever said, don't do what I do, do what I say? Does that work? Absolutely not. They will do what they watch you do. You know what? There's lots of phrases that I've learned and I've really appreciated coming into England. And one of them is that the apple doesn't fall too far from the tree. That just means that little Junior or little Junioress will watch Dad, they will watch Mom, and they will do what they do. So the question is, Dad, Grandpa, are we the kind of example? If you were to take your child's life or your grandchild's life and wind it forward 10 or 15 or 20 years, in all likelihood, they will take on a lot of your characteristics. Okay? Isn't that true? Yeah. So now the question is, are you happy about that? Will that embarrass you? And I take that very seriously. And as time goes on and as life goes on, I see the truth of that more and more and more. Children need to be able to make mistakes. Thirdly, don't wish the time away. Don't wish the time away. I can imagine there was this dad. He comes and says, my child comes to me, wants this money. I'm not sure what he's going through. I just wish he would grow up. I wish he would get a grip. And I guess I just wish he would gain maturity to be able to understand he just can't go off and do this thing. It's easy to wish the time away. And I've always said, for each stage of them growing up, there's the nice bits and there's the challenging bits. This dad was coming onto this particular challenging bit. There's a songwriter called Stephen Curtis Chapman. I may have made reference to him a time or so in the past. He's one of these that are sort of the newer type. I guess the older, newer type. He wrote a song in 2007 called Cinderella. If I said of the Disney story Cinderella, is there anyone not familiar with that particular story? Okay, it's a young woman who sort of was a stepchild, right? Typical, she was in her father married somebody else, and her father died, and so this girl was brought up, and the stepmother had real biological daughters, and she didn't bother with Cinderella. So she got given all the slave work to do, and there was this prince, and there was this ball, and she had a fairy godmother, and then she had a dress and all these kind of things. But the rules were, she could go to this ball, but she had to come back by, you remember what time it was? Midnight. Or else the carriage would become a pumpkin, and the dress would go away, and she would go back to where she was. Stephen Curtis Chapman and his wife adopted a little girl from China. She was called Marie as a baby. And little Marie grew up, and she was 4 years old, and he wrote this little song in honor of Marie because of the kind of things that she did. She liked to dance. She liked to do things that little girls do. The song goes like this. She spins and she sways to whatever song plays without a care in the world. And I'm sitting here, as a dad, I'm sitting here wearing the weight of the world on my shoulders. It's been a long day and there's still work to do. She's pulling at me, saying, Dad, I need you. You see, there's a ball at the castle, and I've been invited, and I need to practice my dancing. Oh, Dad, please. Daddy, please. Chorus goes on. So I will dance with Cinderella while she is here in my arms, because I know something the prince never knew. Oh, I will dance with Cinderella. I don't even want to miss one song, because all too soon the clock will strike midnight and she'll be gone. He wrote to that in honor for her when she was around 4 years old. On the 21st of May, 2007, she was outside playing in the garden with one of the other children. Stephen Curtis Chapman's 17-year-old son got in their truck. He had to go somewhere, threw it into reverse, backed up, not realizing that Marie had ran out into the path of the truck. And in a second, in a blink of an eye, she was gone. He never realized that song that he wrote would be so prophetic. It's so easy, dads, to get so stuck on this right here, right? Because blokes feel a need, and rightly so, to provide for your family. But one of the things our children need is T-I-M-E time. You don't need a lot of money for that. Listen, some of the best memories I ever have of doing what we would do horse, get on. I don't know I could do that anymore, but so Chad's however what he is. But we do something. We do hide and seek. Hide and seek in the house. That was fun. We do. I think we call it traps. So this is when what was it called? The Christmas film. Home Alone. This is when Home Alone was out. And so Chad and Courtney particularly would say, Dad, can you make some traps? And so I do some silly things, and they think that's the greatest thing ever. Those are my favorite times. Those are some difficult days for Dad, for sure. But as we carry on in the text, we see verse 17 through 19, we see something happens now. We see that the truth seeds that was planted in his heart is going to yield growth. Let me just read that again. Luke chapter 15, verses 17 through 19. Notice it says. And when he came to himself, he said, how many of my father's hired servants have bread enough to spare? And I perish with hunger. I will arise and go to my father and will say to him, Father, I have sinned against heaven and before you. I am no longer worthy to be called your son. Make me like one of your hired servants. Here's the great thing. The great thing is this, is that spiritual truth was planted in the heart of this young man. Now, this is a day by day and a week by week experience, by the way, a thing that we need to do. Okay? And I found that, and we've struggled with it. We have tried to do like the home devotion thing, and we've done times when it's worked. Most of the time, it's not worked. It's been hard. It was hard. But I have found important to look for those teachable moments, and there are teachable moments. Those times when there's struggles, and then the heart will be open. The heart will be open. And there's opportunities there to plant that spiritual truth, those ideas, those concepts that if we were to pray, if we were to be the examples, if we then were to grab that opportunity when the opportunity's there to give the words, then it all comes together. Now here's the problem. We know that the spiritual truth can be planted. We know that those words can go in there by example and then by words, but one of the problems is that we don't know when this is going to grow. See, we may say, well, I want it to grow now. I want to see my son or my daughter to be able to take on these spiritual truths now. But it may not happen now. And then we may struggle, well, how much are they going to take on board? Is it going to be a little bit? Are they going to really understand as time moves on? Will they come to a realization? Will they say, I've been stupid, like this lad? He came to himself. He said, what am I doing? Why, I'm out here now. I've spent all my money. My friends are no longer interested in me because I have no more money. What have I done? What have I done? He came to the realization. And he realized, you know what? Dad's not so stupid after all. And I was wrong. By the way, are those words easy to say or hard to say? Those are hard to say. And if we, as fathers and grandfathers, could again lead the charge, and when you are wrong, to be willing to admit that you are wrong, that will speak volumes. Because then they will understand that, oh, Dad's not perfect. Okay? But he's willing to admit when he's made a mistake. That is powerful. That will enable your child or your grandchild to admit when they failed, to ask forgiveness even, but then to move on. What a gift that is. What a gift. But then I wanted to spend just a few minutes now as we look toward that last bit. And this is such a wonderful thing as we see the heart of a godly father there in verse 20. It says, and he arose and came to his father. But when he was still a great way off, his father saw him and had compassion. We're going to stop right there. The father's eyes were looking. Did you catch what it said? And when he arose, when he was still a great way off, his father saw him. So what does that tell me? That his father was looking for him. His father was looking for him. He didn't wait till he came knocking on the door. His father had surrendered him over to God. As much as we like to control, maybe, we can't control always, can we? And when, particularly as teenagehood comes on, they have to grow and make decisions for themselves, and sometimes they're the wrong decisions, that we need to surrender them over to God. But we can be there, just like that dad was there, longing for that child to come back, when maybe physically, maybe spiritually, maybe emotionally, and looking for that time. The father's eyes were looking. But also, the father's heart was filled with compassion. That speaks a lot. The father saw him and had compassion. Compassion is love with action. What could the father have done? What could have been the father's attitude? His attitude could have been that of bitterness, right? Could have been. Could have been that of anger. Could have been, I told you so. Could have been. But he loved him. He loved him. And he welcomed him back. By doing that, he said, I don't love you because of what you do or you don't do. I love you because you are my son. And dads, please, let's all together, as dads, as grandpas, let's choose to love our children because they are our children. Because God has given them to us to care for, to look after. And what a great gift it is. You may say, Eric, it's a burden. There's difficult times. I get it. I understand. But it's a gift. It's a gift. I don't love you because of what you do or you do not do. I love you because you are my son. Then thirdly, the Father's Spirit was quick to forgive. Was quick to forgive. Holding on to anger and bitterness will destroy you. Okay? We've talked much about forgiveness. We've talked much about this dynamic within the church family, but certainly within our own family, we've got to be able to do this as well. And fathers, if you're not willing to be able to develop that relationship, to work on that relationship, to be willing to forgive, to be willing to love, it's going to not just harm your relationship with your child, but it'll harm your relationship with God, your fellowship with God, and your fellowship with your family as well. I know we've not dealt with a lot of the details all throughout this. We want to just try and highlight some really important things. First of all, Dad, there was difficult days out there for this particular dad. Being a dad does produce some difficult days. It's just the way it is. However, let's realize that our children do need to make mistakes. Let's not wish the time away. But as dads, as we pray, as we are an example, as we listen, as we teach, all those things added together will speak into the hearts of those children, those sons, those daughters. And then when the time comes that maybe they go out and do things that maybe they shouldn't, that they know that there's a dad back at home whose arms will be open to love them and to welcome them. What a gift that is. What a gift. Let's have a word of prayer.